So some of the tools that you're going to need over and above what you'd normally expect on doing a normal car. This is a camshaft locking tool kit. So it comes with two different sizes for the 1.6, 1.8 and 2 litre engines, because the camshaft profiles are different between the engines. So you'd only use one set of these. I presume it's the dirtier set is the ones that I normally use. Yep. So those will be for the smaller engines. These will be for the larger engines. These are the tensioning tools as well. Again, you can't tension the belt properly without these. This one's for the, can't remember which way around. One of them's for the camshaft belt, one of them's for the balancer shaft belt. I think this is the timing belt one. Yeah, because there's a hole, isn't there? Yeah, so that goes into the hole. And that one's for the balancer shaft belt. You can't do it without them. Well, you could, but you'll mess it up. And, just do it properly. You'll need this spark plug tube, top dead center extension, I suppose you'd call it. You will need a dial indicator, which goes on the top of the tube. You will need, if you're doing the Variator, which is another weak point of these engines, you're going to need a Variator removal tool, which is what I got there. And the Variator will last, say, 90,000 miles maybe before it's on its last legs. You'll also need various ribe. Okay, don't confuse ribe with Torx and vice versa. I'm using the impact gun there as well because for some things it's better. Okay, so here we are. So this is the 2 litre twin spark engine. You can see this one has got a bit of a customised intake manifold on, intake on. Nothing to do with the manifold. It's got a lot of this plastic around here, which is going to have to come off in order for us to do it, and around here as well. The wheel arch liner and this wheel will have to come off on this side, on the driver's side. Obviously the engine cover needs to come off. This needs to come off. The camshaft cover needs to come off. Timing belt covers need to come off as well. Fan belt, etc., etc. So yeah, a lot of work. So this particular car is the 166, yeah, but it's the same principle for anything else really with this engine. Okay, so like I said, the first thing to do is to take some of this plastic stuff off because it makes it difficult to get to the belts and the front of the engine. So this is all going to come off. I will take this off as well just to make life that as easy as possible. Okay, so you can see we've got a lot more room around the engine now. Can more easily get at the front anyway. So the next thing to do is to take the auxiliary drive belt off, and this is the tensioner here. It's an automatic tensioner, so you need a 15mm socket ratchet on there to turn it that way. So you basically turn this anti-clockwise, it moves, slackens the belt, and you can just pull it off. Okay, so the drive belt is off, as you can see. This is the old belt here. So what you want to do is have a look at your belt and decide whether you want to change it based on how long it's been on there. You can see with this one, have a look. If you bend it in a particular way, so if you bend it in on itself, you can see that there. You've got some cracking going on. Components at the front of the engine. So you've got an idler here, which is the for the auxiliary belt, which just took off. This is the power steering pump. The alternator is underneath it, which you can't quite see. Crankshaft pulley and air conditioning pump. So the next thing to do is this is going to come off, because we can't take obviously the belts off without there, whatever happens. You can see there's a slight oil leak here, which will probably be from the rocker cover gasket, or cam cover gasket, which are notorious for leaking. So we'll just make sure it is when we get to that point. So the next thing to do before going any further are to take this off. We'll also take the engine cover off, this top plastic cover, which doesn't really do anything apart from protect the coil packs and stuff from water and getting water down into your plug holes and this sort of thing. So these are ribe bolts, like I said, they're captive, so you're not going to lose them. So we're going to take that off next. Okay, so we've got the engine cover, the top engine cover off, and the idler for the fan belt, so that's a 15. These are ribe M6, they're not tight because this is just a plastic cover. It sits over the main engine. So we get the engine cover off. Next things we're going to do are to disconnect the coil packs here. We're going to pull these off, not with the pliers but by hand. If you use the pliers you'll regret it. If you can't pull them off by hand, you're going to have to resort to something like a pliers, but wiggle them and play with them until they come off first. We're going to unclip the Variator solenoid from the cover. We're going to remove this pipe here and this air hose here, unclip the harness from its various points here. We will also unclip the air conditioning compressor wire in here, so that we can get the wire in, throw it over there, so it's out of the way, because all this needs to come off. We can then lift the coil packs off, so we can see the spark plugs. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so like I said, I was just going to unclip the solenoid connector, but I've completely unplugged it, because why not? It would have been in the way probably. I've unclipped it from here and here, and I'm just resting it back there. I've undone the wiring from the compressor and the coil plugs, the coil packs. But there's an earth wire here, which earths the assembly that the coil packs sit on. I need to undo that as well. Whilst I've got again, these are ribe bits, they look like M6 again. So I'm going to undo all of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. By looking at it, you don't undo these just hold the coil packs to this plate. These are the ones that hold the plate in place. You can leave that one as well, I believe. So yeah, I'm going to do that next, because we've got to get this out. Okay, so these are all loose now. I did have to lever them with a small screwdriver like this. So I'm just being very careful just to try and get underneath and lever them a little bit whilst pulling as well. Obviously you don't want to crack these. These are probably hard to find now, to be fair. Yeah, you don't want to break them unless you fancy spending more money. And yeah, be careful what you're leaving on, because you know this is plastic, so you don't want to start. You don't want to do that. Crack this. You don't want to do anything like that, because you could go through. So just be careful. So now, oops, we should be ready to lift this assembly off. So obviously it's a twin spark engine, so there are 8 spark plugs. So these serve the smaller spark plugs, and these sit on top of the main spark plugs. Okay, so the car's jacked up now, wheels off, supported, an axle stand over there, and the jack under the towing eye area at the front. So now we need to remove this inner wheel arch liner. It's fixing here, here. There's one on the front bumper support bracket. There should be one there, but it's not there. So we'll take that off, because we need to get that off in order to be able to access the front of the engine. This clip here from this particular car. I know it's not really relevant, but there's a bit like that. And these two panels separate eventually. Something like that. Don't lose these if you can help it. So yeah, we're going to take that liner off. These are just little screw bolt things, set screws or whatever. So we'll get them off and then we can see the front of the engine. Okay, so wheel arch liner's off, so now you can see the front of the engine. So let me just take you through the parts again. So main crankshaft pulley, air conditioning compressor, auxiliary belt tensioner, spring. Alternator is now visible, so if you wanted to change the alternator, this is where you want to be doing it. You're going to need to get underneath to do the wires on the back of it and stuff as well, but here it is, power steering pump. So, I mean, whilst you're under here, check these things for wear. Okay, so the bolts come out easily, they weren't tight at all. You could just use a normal half-inch ratchet with not much stress from above. Now, if you look at these, don't let anybody tell you these are Torx. They're called ribe. Okay, they do different things. You might get a Torx bit in there to undo it, but then you can undo a bottle of milk with a pliers if you wanted to. Use the right tool. Ribe. I mean, they're quite common, but they're different from Torx. Anyway, they're off. So I'm going to use a rubber mallet to try and get this off. It can be tight. Some cars, you might need a pullers to get the pulley off. I doubt it. This should come off fairly easily. We'll see now. Right, so literally one hit with a mallet and it was loose and it's off. So there. What you will have noticed is the tensioner for the auxiliary belt. If you look here, you can see it is just in front of this lower timing belt cover, so there's only the one bolt holding this tensioner on. I'm going to undo it and take it off now, just so it's out of the way. I got a feeling it'll just be in the way in a minute otherwise, and then I'll have to take it off anyway. So this is going to come off. This bolt, that's just to apply and remove the tension basically, or if you want to change this, but this comes as an assembly anyway. Just undo this with, it looks like a 13mm hex, normal hex socket. Okay, so with the timing belt covers, there are various fixings around it. It's in two parts, as you can see. I think earlier cars might have been in one part, but this is presumably slightly easier as a result. So you can see here, fixing here, fixing here. This one's for the rear cover, so we don't need to take that off. We've got one here. I think that one is the front one down there. We've got these edge ones. We've got these here as well, and here. Again, you've got a combination here of ribe and Allen key type hex ones. So again, it's going to be M6 ribes by the look of it, or M5. There's even a bolt through that one. So a combination of fixtures and fittings, which will be typical of an older vehicle like this, because people will just lose them, put back different ones. So some of the ones that are hex and the ones that are ribe are going to be original. That bolt's not original, but equally you might not have anything original holding this cover on. It could be broken. You can see there's some of this cover is missing here at the bottom. Not a big deal. So yeah, we're going to get these covers off before we go any further. So the covers are off. Now these are the bolts that came out to the covers. As you can see, they're all slightly different lengths and styles, so I've put them in order where they came from. So this is the bottom, working my way up so I can put them back in the right place. As you can see, covers and stuff off. So I'll take you through what we can see now. Right, so crankshaft, balance shaft sprocket, behind it is the timing belt sprocket. This is the lower balance shaft tensioner, upper balance shaft, timing belt tensioner, timing belt idler, water pump, and inlet camshaft, exhaust camshaft. So there's a lot going on there, but you know, it can seem a bit daunting, I suppose. But the first thing you want to do is just to have a little inspection of the condition of the existing belts and the tension. So you can see tension of the balance shaft belt, perfect. Condition and tension of the timing belt itself. Seems reasonable. Good tension between the camshafts as well, which is important. The next thing to do is to take spark plugs out. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so spark plugs out. Now you can see condition of plugs. That's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with those at all. Like we saw earlier, the one in number 2, there's some oil in the well, just dripped all over the spark plug now. That's all right, we can just dry it off. So let's give a box of bits as we go in. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to refit the crankshaft pulley. And I'll explain why after we've done it. You only need to put 2 bolts in loosely, say. So if you remember earlier, on the lower timing chain, like timing belt cover, you've got this little timing mark at the top. Yeah. We know that this belt cover was on in this position, as you can see where the bolt holes line up. And it's near enough vertical, I suppose. Not quite, it's to the left a little bit. It's roughly pointing up towards this bolt at the back. And we know on the pulley, I'm going to mark here. So this is your top dead center mark. What we want to do, we're going to rotate the engine so that this mark is around here for a minute. So let's do that now. Right, so I've rotated the engine. Now, what I should have said by rotating the engine is standing up there, grabbing hold of this with both hands and just turning it. So we took the spark plugs out so that there's no compression in the engine, which means you can just turn this easily now by hand, which is important because you need to line it up. Now we could get this to top dead center and put a flywheel lock and it won't move. But there's just no point. Like I said, it's extra work and it's less accurate because you're going to put your flywheel lock between 2 teeth. Sometimes, depending on how the flywheel's been fitted, or any slop in this does have like a Woodruff key type thing here. I mean, anything that's slightly out, you're never going to get to line up. But at least with this method, you're going to use the gauge, which you have to use anyway, regardless of which method you're using. In order to get the timing right. So this is approaching where we want it. So you can tell, obviously it needs to be on the compression stroke as well. So we know that it is going to be, because there are, this is pointed here, and if you come up to camshafts, and there are marks on the camshaft as well. So last time I painted these 2 marks in red, just to give me an idea. So they're nearly in line with each other. So when they are in line with each other, they'll be in the right position as well. Yeah, I've got this mark over here. Again, that's a factory mark that would potentially point to something on the timing cover, but there are no marks on the timing cover for you to use. These aren't reliable either. Someone's made, like I said, made my own on these. They're not reliable, so don't think that just because there's some marks there. You've got these in the right position, simply because if you've changed the variator after somebody else made these marks, say, then you're going to be in a situation where these marks don't line up anymore, because the variator is going to be fitted in a slightly different, tightened up to a slightly different torque. It'll be in the wrong position. If there's wear in the variator, which is the whole reason I'm changing the variator, this will potentially be in the wrong place. So yeah, you can't judge them. Anyway, now we're just before top dead center. The next thing to do is to remove the engine cover. So to remove the engine cover, we have ride bolts again. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they look like M6. So they won't be tight. They'll be torqued to a specific amount, because there's a rubber seal which will be compressed to a certain amount to stop it leaking. Obviously this one is leaking, so it needs to be compressed a bit more. So we're going to remove this cover. Obviously being careful that nothing falls into the engine at any point. You want the cover of the engine to be off for as minimal time as possible, because you're going to get dust and pollen and bits and stuff going inside, which isn't what you want really, but unfortunately you can't do much about that. So we're going to get the cover off, and then we will fit our top dead center tube and gauge. Okay, so engine cover's off. See 2 camshafts. Now we're going to fit the spark plug DTI tube into cylinder number 1, like this. So you just screw it in as if you're screwing a spark plug in. So by hand though, just so it's in. That's in. Just hand tight. And then fit the gauge. Okay, just to show you how you could get it wrong. So obviously I've fitted the DTI tube and gauge now. Piston number 1 is at top dead center, but the exhaust camshafts are facing the wrong. The camshafts are facing the wrong way. So you need to rotate the engine another revolution, because the camshafts run at half speed of the crankshaft. So although this is pointing at the timing mark, these are 180 degrees out. So the marks I pointed at earlier need to be in the right place. If you don't have these marks, which you probably won't, you will have this one. This needs to be at 1 o'clock, not at 7 o'clock. So you rotate the engine once more by hand, just grab it and turn it until this mark is roughly where it is now. You watch your gauge to get it at the top. You watch these marks to make sure they line up if you've got them. If you've got this one, it needs to be about 1 o'clock. Okay, so correctly timed up looks like this. So mark on your pulley. It's pointing to that bolt there if you're directly in front of it. Okay, and it's about 11 o'clock. This factory mark is at about 2 o'clock. Any marks that you made last time will be in the middle. And now you'd have the possibility of fitting the camshaft locking tools. So if you look at these, as you can see, they match the profile of the camshaft. So written on them, we've got M1A2 cylinder. M1 is for the inlet, M2 is for the exhaust. It says 2 sill on it. This is Italian. It says 3 sill. So this goes on cylinder number 2, this goes on cylinder number 3. So if you have a look, you can tell you got it right. This would be replacing this bearing cap here. So you can see that it would fit. So if you look here, you can see that that shape is going to match that camshaft, it's going to fit. Similarly with the other one, this one goes on cylinder 3, so this bearing cap. So you can see if you put that on there, when you put that on there, again it will fit perfectly to hold it. So these are the camshaft locking tools. These will hold the camshaft in place whilst you change the belts. What you would do now, you remove this bearing cap, fit this here, remove that bearing cap and fit that there. We're changing the variator though, so we're going to do a slightly different procedure. We will fit this bearing cap now though. Actually, quickly, with this being a 2-litre engine, you've got the balancer shafts as well. So these ones you can see, so you've got a timing mark here. Now if you were in front of it, you can see it's lining up with this mark here. And the other bouncer shaft, the line here, and it is lining up with the notch casting on the casting behind, so you know that that's in the right position as well. Right, before you remove any of these bearing caps, take some photos of which way round they are. You can't put them back in any old order or the wrong way round. So as you can see, there are numbers and letters stamped into them. They don't mean anything, ignore them. This one, for example, these are 10mm hex head set screws, by the way. Just undo them, they won't be tight. Again, these aren't meant to be torqued up much. So you just undo this bearing cap. Okay, you pick it up, you put it up there in the same orientation so you don't mess it up. Take a picture. This has to go back on here, and has to be back. It has to be on this way round. You know, so the D10, this one says, it has to be that way. You can't put it the other way. Okay, so camshaft locking tool, if the exhaust camshaft is on. Same bolts have gone back in. So the next thing to do after you've got that on, we're doing the variator like I said. Normally you would now fit this camshaft locking tool here. This fitted first time, by the way. Sometimes depending on who did the timing belt before, they may not have lined it up properly, so this could have been out. Even though the engine, the bottom end's at top dead centre, this camshaft might not be in the right position. There's nothing to say it has to be. You could do it wrong, like I said, and people can. This was right because I did it last time, so I know it was right, but you may need to get another ratchet and socket on the end of this as you're fitting this. Wiggle this around so you're changing the position of the camshaft slightly so that you can fit that. The idea is this fits. If this fits, the camshaft's in the right position. If it doesn't fit, it's not. So it's pointless carrying on. You know, you need to adjust the position of it. I'm just lucky this time that this is fitted. Next thing to do is to loosen this nut here whilst the belt is on there, because the belt will help hold the camshaft as well as a locking tool, as well as a camshaft locking tool, and as well as the holding tool, which I'll show you in a second. And all the help we can get to undo that. That can be tight. It might not be that tight. It'll be alright now probably, but we'll do that next. Okay, so this is the sprocket holding tool. It's very simple. It's not specific to this car. The idea is you can put this in here basically to apply some counter tension by hand whilst you try and undo that bolt. Be careful because you've got, I believe, the camshaft sensor is behind and it's plastic here. So don't break that with that tool. Be careful. Put those little nubbins in some holes other than anywhere near that bloody thing. Otherwise you'll be changing that as well. So here we go. Okay. So that was quite easy. Didn't have to really do all that much to get that loose. It wasn't that tight. it's worth, when you put this back on, to put a little bit of medium thread lock on that, just to make sure. But you know, it was tight, not ridiculously tight, but pretty tight. You might be asking why I've done that. Well, this sprocket can move on the camshaft slightly, only a few degrees, but you need it to. When we come back to putting the new timing belt on and tension in it, these need to be able to move, because otherwise, how are you supposed to remove any slack you've got here? You can't. There's no way. On some engines it may not matter. This is the procedure for this engine. You have to be able to remove any slack here. And like I said, unless these are free to move, you know, you apply tension here. Yeah, you'll tension this part, but you're not going to be able to tension this. And this is partly why these timing belts fail, because people haven't done it properly. So what you'll end up with is loads of slack here, really tight here, and here, and here. Well, potentially loose here, actually, really fucking tight here. So it'll just snap. This will wear, this will damage a brake, the tension will get damaged, the water pump will get damaged. These have got to be able to move, so that needs to be loose. And if you were doing this now, I'd loosen these, and this can rotate freely as well. But we're taking, like I said, we're doing the Variator, so this camshaft's going to have to come off completely. Right, but this is locked. Next thing to do now is to get the balance shaft belt off. Now the way in which you do that is there's a bolt, a nut rather, on the back of the tensioner. So you have to get underneath and get round and just undo the nut on the back, and the tensioner comes off. There's no bolt that would loosen it so that it can move. Okay, so this is what I use to get the nut off the back of the balance shaft tensioner. So just use a small 1/4" ratchet with a 10mm socket. There's a washer and a 10mm nut. So it's tiny to think that this is what's holding it on. Again, when you put this back on, you want to have some thread lock on there to stop it coming off. It was tight, it wasn't loose, but I'm going to be safe than sorry. What you should find out though is when we come around here, basically this is slack now, you can see. Just pull the tensioner off, chuck it on the floor because you'll have a new one in your kit, and take the belt off, and it's off. So this bolt, this nut rather, maintains the tension. We're just going to undo that. It looks like a 13, and the tension should come away. Okay, so it was a 13, and you can see now we're loose. There's no washer. You can't get it off because it goes slides in behind. So you put it on before put the belt on. But now we should be able to slide the belt off. So let's have a little look. So we're loose around the water pump. That's off. And then we'll just feed it back down. Now the manual tells you to take off the balance shaft pulley in order to fit the timing belt, but whether or not that's necessary for it, but like you can see, there's absolutely no need. I think maybe on the earlier engines or a different type of car, maybe you've got something in the way that stops you being able to do it, but certainly on the 166 anyway, you can just take it off like that. Right, so now we're completely free up here. So there shouldn't be anything keeping the tensioner on, and there's not. So this is a slidey bolt, you leave that there. So now that's off, you want to check, see what else you've got going on. So we've got the water pump. Again, water pump sounds absolutely fine. There is no noise from it. Tiny bit of end float, but you know, nothing, there's no leak. It feels nice, but we will be changing that. this comes part of the kit. Again, nothing wrong with it. We'll remove this next. Okay, so we got the timing belt idler off. Next thing we're going to do is take off the inlet camshaft. Then that'll just give us a better view of the water pump. So we're going to do that next. We'll undo those ride bolts, take the sprocket off, and then we'll undo the rest of the bearing caps, again keeping them in the right place. Do not mix them up with the one on the front, which is up there, the exhaust camshaft. So we want to keep these really nice and tidy, somewhere safe, until we've done the variator and we can put it back together. I won't be doing the variator today. This camshaft, I don't have a vise. The idea is you take that camshaft out and put it in a vise with some wood blocks, not so you don't damage it. And you unscrew the variator. We'll show that in the next video, but for now 10mm, bearing caps off, somewhere safe, camshaft out, and then we'll do the water pump. Okay, so like I said, I haven't done the variator before, but it looks like what you have to do is I've taken all the bearing caps off apart from that one over there. Take this pulley off as well. So there you can see a camshaft magnet sensor. There's a bolt set screw here I've taken out. Now if you look at the cylinder head, you can see how this is together. There's a join here, which you can see. So I'm assuming that you can take these bolts out like I have, tap this off to be able to get your camshafts out. That's the theory anyway. Can't see any other way of doing it. They wouldn't come this way for obvious reasons. They would have to lift out, and the only way to lift them out is to do what we're doing, I think. Unless I'm being a complete idiot. But let's see how we get on. Okay, so this is how it comes apart. So I just gently teased screwdriver hammer in to the oil seal, and this just came away. So you can see it would have been sealed. There's some sealant. They didn't seem to want to use much, but it worked, to be fair. This does mean now I need to buy this oil seal as well. Which I didn't think I needed to do. I thought this was in 2 pieces. It's not though. It's one casting. You can see there's a bearing shell for the variator. That's in excellent condition, as you can see. Now what we should be able to do is put this to one side, undo that bearing cap, and the whole camshaft should come out. So cylinder number 4, this bearing cap was under some tension, so remember that when we put this back together, because you know what you can do is if you're a pillock and you're rushing, it's easy to strip the threads in this. So if I was just to go at this hammer and tongs and just try and do this one or this one up to full torque before doing any others, it's obvious what's going to happen. It'll strip because it won't be able to handle the load that's coming over here. So when we do come to put this back together, we need to set the camshaft in it like it is here now. Be mindful of this. Fit this bearing cap loosely first, just a small amount of pressure. Fit them all, gradually work them up equally to the best we can, knowing that we've got load here, so we just need to think about it. So yes, we should be able to get this camshaft out now. Okay, so here we are with the camshaft front cap off. Like I said, be careful, there's a bearing shell there. It's easy for it to fall out and drop on the floor and get scored or damaged or something, so just be mindful of that. I mean, you could, you know, take it out and put it somewhere safe, but it's alright there. I'm not going to be changing them because 1, they're probably really hard to get. 2, there's no wear on it at all. The exhaust camshaft doesn't seem to have any shells. Which it doesn't, you can see. And there's an oil wheel here, which is for the variator, I presume. There's an oil passageway there, so the bottom shell I've left in place. So that's happy where it is, I think. So I need to order this seal. You will want to use a gasket scraper to get any remnants of gasket off here. And you want to use a nice silicone sealant. I say gasket, is silicone is what they use. But you want to scrape that off, Jim, and get it all nice and prepared, ready for when you get your new stuff. But I think what we'll do at this point is we may as well move your tools out of the way using the water pump. Just done all the bearing caps up evenly, slowly, to get it back in. So it's important you do this position, so the lobes on number 1 should be pointing to the back of the car. Make sure you get your bearing caps back on in the right orientation. Just tighten each of them up very slowly and gently, because 3 and 4 are sort of just operating on the valve, so the spring tension. Okay, so the next thing to do is to take this one back off and fit the locking tool. There you go. So I had to fit the inlet sprocket again to get enough leverage to turn the camshaft round a few degrees so you get this on. So yeah, I'll take it back off now because we're going to do the oil seals and the front camshaft support as well. So I've taken the pulley back off. I'm going to use this gasket sealant for the support casting. So I've cleaned off as much bits of gasket and stuff around here as I can. Much of there again. But it says apply to one surface. I'm going to put it around here and then put it on. So it needs to seal all the way up to here, really. Okay, so I decided to fit the front support with the gasket sealant. I've cleaned off as much of the the red that spilled out, because that could affect the sealing of the rocker gasket then. I decided to fit this oil seal next because I was aware that the gasket sealant was in there as well, drying, and I didn't want it to interfere with the sealing of this, so it's got to go in at some point, so it's in now. So I used the old one because I haven't got any big sockets this size. I use the old seal that way round with the metal towards you as a drift, so it didn't damage this, and it worked really well. I'm going to do the same for the little one now. So make sure you cover them in oil first. A little tub of oil here. So I'm gonna use this new one, old one. So I'm gonna get this oily first and then put it in. Okay, so both oil seals are in now. So with this one, I had a big socket that would go on there nicely, so I used that to drift that one in. I didn't have anything that big, so I used the old seal and just went in a 12-6-9-3 sort of pattern until it wouldn't go in anymore. Right, decided not to do the water pump simply because, you know, this one is just absolutely fucking fine, and it doesn't even look that old. And the new one I've got, I mean, it's an aftermarket one for a start. I don't know, the seal looks too small as well, so I'm not going to bother. I'm going to keep with the other one. The interval on the belts is 36,000 miles anyway, and that'll last that long, so I'll do it next time. So, next thing to do now is to put this back on. Don't forget to put the screw back in there, which you have to take out to take this off. And then I think the next thing is to put the sprockets back on, isn't it? You only fit them loosely, like I said, because when you're doing the belts, these need to be able to move, so just get them on there roughly for a minute. And then, unless I'm very much mistaken, we can start fitting the belts. Okay, so the pulleys are back on, just loosely, like I said, so just put it in and just put that up hand tight for a minute. It needs to be able to move a bit like that. Same with this one, just finger tight so that it can still do that, because you need for it to be able to do that. So when the belt is on and tensioned and everything's in the right position, I'll remake this mark, because this won't mean anything anymore, because you've changed the variator, the studs are in a different position, so this won't be in the same place. So ignore, now you have to ignore that. So yeah, so there is a woodruff key for this this one, which is why it only does that much. And similarly, this one, these are the elongated holes in the sprocket, so that you've got that adjustment there. So when we fit the belt, we're going to want this one to be turned towards the front of the engine, so that when you tension it, it's able to take the slack in between. Right, sorry. So this one needs to be turned towards the front of the car. This one needs to be turned just towards the front of the car as well, so that when you tension it, any slack you've got in this run gets taken out, and anything between gets taken out as well. So yeah. So I think the next thing to do is to get the DTI tube back in, so we can make sure the engine's still at top dead centre, and then we start fitting the belt. Okay, before we do any further, I've just fitted the timing belt idler. The new one comes in the kit, so that's on there. I'm using a little bit of medium strength thread lock as well, just in case. I've never used thread lock before, but I am now. So it's an original kit, so we've got tensioners here as well, so we need to fit that loosely before fitting the belt, I think. and I got the belt in there. So we'll put this on loosely, and then we'll go from there. So I just thought it was worth showing you the timing belt tensioner before we do any more. So when this is on the car, we use the tensioner tool to tension it, and you can tell, you know, when it's tensioned correctly because this arrow points in the middle of that hole. So you'll see how we do that when it's on the car, but obviously it's untensioned at the moment, so that's as loose as it goes. So this, like I said, this is an original kit. This says made in Canada. That's a Japan oil seal again. It's the metal one. You know, make sure it's nice and undamaged and everything's alright with it before you put it on. So yeah, so we'll get this on loosely and then get the belt out. Just get the belt roughly in the right position, and then we'll get that DTI tube back in as well. Right, as you can see, just the two like arms of the tensioner go around this here, so it goes like that. So just get on there loosely for a minute like that. Put the nut on, you know, roughly, just so it's not going to fall off. And then we'll put I'm going to put the one back in the gauge and make sure it's still the top dead center, and then we'll fit the belt. So yeah. So this is the new belt. Came as part of the genuine Alfa kit. It's made or branded FPT. German is the top word, so that's probably a good thing. You've got arrows for the direction of run on it, so that's the way we'll put it on. Okay, so loosely fitted the belt. So the way I did it was to hook it over there, get it on the pulley first down there, get this run over here, do this, and then do this last. Do the exhaust camshaft last. But you can see I've got movement there, which is what I want to take the slack. Movement here, so let me take that slack out. So when you tension this, you know, that's the point. Tensions it, tensions it all in theory. So we'll see how we go now. This can take a couple of goes. So the tensioning tool for the timing belt is this one, the one with the pointy thing on, I think. Yeah, it's the one with the pointy thing. So this is the complicated bit now, I suppose. So you've got this hole there, which is where this is going to go in. Okay, so the way it works, it's on a cam. You can see it's off center. So obviously, what's going to happen is you get in there, get in the hole, like that. As you turn clockwise, you can't see very well, but as you turn it, you're tensioning it. Do two hands to do this. So you keep tensioning it until your pointer moves into the middle of the hole. So I'm going to try and do that now. Right, so I've I can't see it at all. Right, so I've tensioned it so the arrow is in the middle of the hole. The pointer is in the middle of the hole, which is how you want it, and I've tightened this up. So this is a special type of split nut anyway, to stop it undoing. So you can put thread lock on this after you've got the tension right, because it'll seep in. But the next thing to do now you've got the tension right, we're going to have to tighten these pulleys. Just again, tightish, you don't have to torque them or anything yet, because you might have to do it again. And we're going to rotate the engine. We have to remove the cam locks, rotate the engine twice, refit the cam locks, and then recheck the tension. So, pain in the arse, I know, but yeah, that's what you got to do. So do that next. So remove the cam locks, rotated the engine twice, and now you can see that the pointer is lower than the hole. So now the belt is too loose. So we have to refit the cam locks, slacken the pulleys again, and slightly adjust the tension. And the reason for that is because you wouldn't have fitted the belt in exactly the centre of its run. So at some points it's doing a run that is greater than 0 degrees. So for example, between the inlet and the exhaust cam, how it rode on the water pump, say. So now it's rotated, everything's lined up, so everything's straight now, which means the tension is lower, so you have to adjust it again. But that's okay, it's quite easy to do, so we'll do that again now. Right, I've done it again, so we're in the middle of the hole again. Well, as near as I could get it. So we'll tighten the sprockets again, rotate it again, and see where we are again. Okay, so I've got the belt tension to as good as I can get it. It's not spot on, but if you're in front of it, it's near enough. So you need to line the balance shafts up with the marks. There's a mark on it on the sprocket, and there's one behind. And same with that one. I'm going to get the balance shaft belt and put that on as well, and the tensioner as well. So this is the balance shaft belt tensioner. So it's different from the other one. It's got this little dot in it. And you can think of this as an arrow. So when we put this on, anyway, this is correctly tensioned when there's a straight line between the dot and the end of the arrow. So it needs to, so this pointer needs to be up here. It'll be easy to see once it's on, but that's the idea. And you use this other tensioner tool there to do it. So there's two different types. Right, so I've just loosely fitted the balance shaft belt. I'm ready to tension it. So you can see the marks line up on both of them, and I've got the tensioner fitted with the nut loose on the back, because obviously if it was tight I couldn't tension it. So this is the tensioner tool. Again, it's the one with the inverted, the hole basically. You can see how it works. So as you turn, you're going to be pushing on this little lever here and increasing the tension. You know when it's right because these line up. So I'm going to tension it and then show you this lined up. Okay, this is the balance shaft belt on and tension now. I meant to say there are little marks on this belt that correspond with the white mark on the belt. The same there. So you do need to have them lined up with the pulleys, just because if you get it wrong, the tensioner ends up being in the wrong place and you can't tension it properly, basically. So have those right, and then tension it so it looks like that with it. Turn the phone like that. So it's in the middle, got like a straight line between the dot and the arrow. That's what it's meant to look like. Right, so remove the cam locks, rotated the engine twice, it's back at top dead centre. Cam locks would fit back on. So that tells me the camshafts are still in the right place. The marks I'm talking about here don't line up anymore for the reasons I explained earlier, but that's fine. The factory mark is back in the right place, which is important. If you didn't have the gauge, which you can't do it without it really, the top dead centre mark lines back up with that bolt, just as, you know, confirmation it definitely is at top dead centre. Tension on the timing belt is, can you see, is right, and so is the barrel shaft belt. So I'm going to put a dab of thread lock on there, and I'm going to tighten that up on the back fully, and then I'm going to remove the DTI gauge, fit those two bearing caps, and then probably fit the rocker cover gasket, start fitting the timing belt covers. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I've got all of the bearing caps back on. They're torqued up to 11 foot-pounds. I haven't tightened these up, have I? So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so next thing we do is to fit the new gasket. So here it is. So it only fits one way. You just need to work out which way that is and fit it. Looks like it goes that way, I think. So get it roughly in position first. Oops. Right, okay, and then get yourself some WD-40, spray it down there, down to the holes where the fastenings are. Because otherwise it's a pain in the ass. So do it now. You need to basically push. The bolts have got like a little collar. You need to push the collar into the gasket like that. So you should see the collar sticking sort of inside then. Do it now, otherwise you've got to do it when you're trying to put it on and you'll make a like mess. Besides, this will stop it falling all over the place when you're trying to fit it. So this can take a while and be fiddly as hell, which is why the WD-40 helps. Otherwise, this rubber is hard to get out. I could have used oil.